ESPN Radio.
Yeah, it's the Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio. What's up, nerds? ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Rockets coach. Giving Harden space. Just give him space. Tell you what that could mean in a little bit. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join us in the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pittsburgh, are they a threat to the Chiefs, really? I mean, we've kind of danced around that. Ryan Clark will drop in a couple of minutes. Former Pittsburgh Steeler Super Bowl champ. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line, 888-SAY-ESPN. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. I want you to listen to Damian Woody, ESPN NFL analyst, on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin right here on ESPN Radio in the mornings. Listen to Damian Woody talk about Jarred Goff, who we listened to McVay sound from the other day when he was asked, is he gonna sit Goff down? He said he wasn't, but he wasn't like, hell no, that's a stupid question. He was like, well, I don't know. There was a little hesitation there. Here's Damian Woody on whether or not Jarred Goff is the right guy.
Jarred Goff he's one of those, it's almost like a boom or bust type of guy. Some games you look at him, he's like, man, this guy's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And then other games you look at him, like, why in the world did the Los Angeles Rams invest that much money into that guy? I think that Sean McVay has built a system that suits his strength, but it doesn't seem like he plays up to that week in and week out, whether it be, turnovers or just not executing a game plan. So, it's almost like Carson Wentz. Because of the contract, I don't know what more the Los Angeles Rams will be able to do from that perspective, but they're in the thick of things, and they're going to ride this thing out and see what happens.
Look, here's the thing about Jarred Goff. He was taken number 1 overall. It's interesting because Kyler Murray also taken number 1 overall. And you know what other big game coming up, or an interesting game? The Titans and the Browns. Tannehill was a first-round bust, taken 8th overall. Baker Mayfield taking 1 overall. So in those 2 games, you have 4 high first-round draft picks at quarterback, and where Tannehill was a bust until he got into the right situation. Most quarterbacks are highly coaching dependent. Very few would be great independent of coaching. But when you select number 1 overall in the draft, you're hoping that you do take a guy who's going to be great independent of coaching. I don't think any of those guys fall under that category. The one who comes closest is Kyler Murray. But Tannehill was a bust until he got into the right situation. Now he's looking good. Baker Mayfield, he's all right. Baker Mayfield's okay. Jarred Goff, though, I'm going to get to Kyler Murray in a second. Jarred Goff was taken number 1 overall and given a franchise contract. They paid him over $100 million. You're the guy. I mean, that quarterback class, Goff and Wentz and Dak Prescott. Goff and Wentz got paid. Prescott, the 4th-round draft pick, was offered a Goff-Wentz contract, turned it down, and then got hurt. The Wentz contract is a disaster. It's been a disaster. Dak doesn't have a contract. But by the way, that might have been a disaster, right? Give him the money and then he gets hurt like the next day. What about the Goff contract? Is that a disaster? I would argue it is, actually. Los Angeles, look, is Goff a good quarterback? He's good. He's solid. He's a starting quarterback. Is he a franchise quarterback? I think Goff's okay. But damn, he 2/3 of the way through the season they went to the Super Bowl, I was like, whoa, does he throw a pretty spiral, right? He can read a defense again because a lot of play action. Todd Gurley made him look really good. Receivers everywhere you look, a great defense or a good defense. I know they gave me a lot of DraftKings points that season, and Aaron Donald was on that team. The point is, he needed everything to be just right. And he made it to a Super Bowl. So there's some guys who say, boy, if you give them everything, they won't mess it up for you. They may not, bring you there, but they ain't going to mess it up. But you know what? He kind of did mess it up. He kind of did. He really kind of did. Like, they lost the Super Bowl and they held the Patriots to what, 13 points? You hold your opponent to 13 points in the Super Bowl, you're expecting to win. They scored 9. Now, Gurley wasn't the same in that game. I get it. But he had a lot going on offense. He had a lot going for him on offense. Couldn't get it done. Belichick, was on the other side. That has a lot to do with it. I get it. But guess what? In the Super Bowl, there's going to be a great coach on the other side. Not always the greatest of all time, but a lot of times a great coach. If Los Angeles could do that contract for Goff again, you think they'd do the contract again? I don't. They definitely don't do the Gurley contract. But I don't think they do the Goff contract either. And I get it. You just moved to L.A., you open a new stadium, you have a quarterback, you drafted him, number 1 overall. He looked good. It's working with the youngest head coach ever, right? McVay's like 30 at the time, and he's doing great. Get it all locked up and for the foreseeable future. It was a mistake. There are a lot of quarterbacks worse than Goff. He's middle of the pack. But you're paying him to be a top 5 guy, middle of the pack. And only because Carson Wentz fell off so hard are people not talking more about Jarred Goff. Now, Kyler Murray. Right now, Kyler Murray, understand, has not played very much. 1 year on a bad team as a rookie. Every rookie who's drafted number 1 goes to a terrible team. That's why they're drafting number 1. How fast did they turn it around? He looked promising his rookie year. Second year is where we find out, right? And they get him DeAndre Hopkins. And it's going great for a while. And then recently he's been struggling. Here's the one thing to be careful about with Kyler Murray. Don't let 1 bad or 2 or 3 bad performances make you think, well, he's not going to be that good. Kyler Murray's already excellent. And I know because when you play over a shorter time span, right? You have fewer games in the league. Each game is a larger proportion, a larger percentage of the evidence we have about you, whether you're good or bad. And Kyler is right now a little bit underrated because he's coming off a game against who? Bill Belichick. And Belichick beat him. Right? Belichick made him look Made him look bad, really. Let's face it, Kyler didn't look good last week. But that's what Belichick does. Jarred Goff played Belichick. Now, Belichick had a lot more pieces on defense in the Super Bowl with every offensive weapon you could imagine, mustered 9 points. Let's not overreact to the fact that Kyler Murray's had a couple of bad games, one of them against Bill Belichick's Patriots. 7-4 Rams, 6-5 Cards. So we asked on First Take today, who do you trust more? And this is what it comes down to for me. I know there's a sense Jarred Goff has done it for longer and can be kind of more reliable as a passer so far, and he's taller and more prototypical that way. And Kyler Murray can do it with his legs, but he's inconsistent with his arm. I trust Kyler Murray more, and I'll tell you why. Do this thought experiment for a second. You are rooting for the team playing against Kyler Murray or against Jarred Goff, right? It's a one-possession game, a one-score game, and they have the ball. You're winning. Your team is up 1 score. Let's say 4 points. They need to score a touchdown. Who are you scared of more? Goff has a bunch of dudes, bunch of receivers that can get it done. Let's be out like he has multiple receiving targets that can get it done. A great young head coach who's, has a dynamic offense. Without Whitworth now, it's not the same up front. I get that. But otherwise, a solid offensive line, and with Whitworth in really a good offensive line. And, by the way, and guys who can get it done on defense, too. Kyler Murray also has a bright young coach. We'll see how good Cliff Kingsbury is. He's had a good year so far. I wouldn't say he has the weapons that, overall, Cooper Kupp and Robert Wood, and he has a lot of guys. I wouldn't say Kyler has those, so many different targets, but he has DeAndre Hopkins. So let me ask you this. There's a minute left on the clock. You are rooting against this team. Your team is playing either the Rams or Arizona. Who do you not want to have the ball? I wouldn't want if my Giants are somehow in playoff contention or whatever it is, and I'd much rather than be playing the Rams and Goff has a minute to get it done. I like the Giants' defense chances against them. I mean, they may lose anyway, but I like it better than their chances against Kyler Murray with a minute left, throwing the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. I trust Kyler more. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. Ryan Clark joins me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Ryan, RC, you there?
I'm here, brother.
Who do you trust more, Kyler Murray or Jarred Goff?
Kyler Murray.
Ryan?
That's not even a question. I didn't know we had to think about that.
Well, apparently we do, because Stephen A. and I debated it today on the air. Why do you like Kyler Murray more? Why do you trust him more than Jarred Goff?
Because I trust Kyler Murray more in the exact same situations. If Kyler Murray was the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay was his coach, and he had the Woods and he had the Cubs and he had the Everetts and the backfield, and you put him in that boot-heavy type system where he would have run-pass options, that offense would be explosive. That offense would be.
You just, by the way, debate over. You just ended the debate. Think about what RC just said. Think about what Ryan Clark just said, everybody. Could you imagine, who hangs up the phone, right? Who says no? Rams get a call from Arizona. We'll give you Kyler Murray for Jarred Goff versus Arizona gets a call from the Rams. We'll give you Jarred Goff for Kyler Murray. Could you imagine Kyler Murray on the Rams? Oof, that's it. All right, let's move on because it really does not require any more. Let me ask you this. Your Steelers, Ryan Clark, the team with which you won a Super Bowl, are undefeated still. My contention is as follows. They're coming off the best kind of win for them, where basically psychologically it's like a loss. They can't paper it over. Sometimes people are not as thorough after wins as they are after losses. You say the best time to play the Steelers or Ravens are after they play each other. Washington's been playing better and better, especially on defense, as the season goes on, and the Steelers are on a short rest. I think that they get to avoid a trap game now because of the way they beat Baltimore. So it's the best of all worlds. They're still undefeated. They sweep their divisional rivals, and maybe they beat Washington in a game where maybe otherwise they lose. Your thoughts?
No, I think this is a perfect game for them. If you listen to Coach Tomlin begin to speak about what's going on with Washington, the fact that Washington had 11 days to rest and the Pittsburgh Steelers had 5, for him immediately saying after the game that it was a below-the-line performance for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the only thing that was good about it was that they won. So, they're going to approach these 5 days as if they took an L in that game and try to really focus on the reasons the game was so close. And I think that's a good thing for them. People look at it like, oh, they just won the game, they're just going to move on. That's not the way football works. In the good organizations, you try to pick it apart a little bit more when you have a game like you had against the Baltimore Ravens, because you are looking at it from the side of the W. So coaches understand that attention to detail has to be even heavier on the final points of why the game was so close. And so you're exactly right.
What's it like to play for Tomlin? The greatest coach ever is Belichick. But if I were a player, I'd want to play for Mike Tomlin. What's it like after a game, after a week against your arch rivals? You beat him for the second time, but he's blasting you in the media, and you're on a short week. What's that like?
Well, what it's like is, if you know him, you know he doesn't lie, right? You know he doesn't put on fronts. Like, Coach Tomlin doesn't say things to the media so you guys or so we think he's amazing. He says what he feels, and most times he actually hides some of those things so he can bring them to us. And so for him to actually show that publicly means that it's bothering him, means that it matters, means that it's important. And I know the people in that locker room understand that as well. He likes to keep those things close to the vest. So the fact that we know now how he feels about that performance, we know how he feels about what they have to do to beat Washington, I think that's important for those men in that locker room, and they get which way they need to prepare for this game.
Meantime, the whole question is, the first thing is, can they go undefeated? We'll see. I mean, the odds are against it always, but, it's possible still. The tough part of their schedule is coming up, but it's still possible. But the biggest question really is, can they beat the Kansas City Chiefs? Ryan Clark, what kind of a shot do you give them ultimately against Kansas City?
I give them a shot. I probably give them, at full health, I give them probably the second or third best shot in the league. I think you look at teams like the New Orleans Saints, if healthy, if Drew Brees is healthy, the way they play defense, run the football, the Seattle Seahawks, the way that they're coming along, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers are also right in there with those teams. Maybe ahead of them, maybe even with them, but I think that's right where it is. They can't beat them playing the way they played Wednesday, though, Max. They can't beat them if they can't run the football. You can't beat them if you drop footballs on third downs, if you don't continue drives, if you don't score in the red zone. Every point matters when you play against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that team that we saw against a beat-up, banged-up, undermanned Baltimore Ravens team didn't do anything well enough to honestly really be in the game with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think you and I see this the same way. I see a Chiefs-Saints Super Bowl coming, but let me get into the Chargers for a second before I even get into Belichick versus Herbert. To me, a lot of this is Belichick versus Anthony Lynn, and this is where I am with it. RC, you tell me how you feel. You know, we make a lot. Stephen A. talks a lot about on the show, and so do I, about the lack of NFL head coaches who are African American in a league that is predominantly African American, right? And here's an African American head coach in Anthony Lynn, who Ryan Clark, I think I'm done with him. I don't think he's very good in the end. I think he makes too many mistakes late in games. I think that's one of the main reasons that the Chargers have a bad record, because they have an awesome quarterback and they have talent. I think Belichick versus Anthony Lynn is not going to go well for Justin Herbert. What are your thoughts about Anthony Lynn's hot seat before we even get into the game?
Oh, man, that seat's on fire. I believe that seat has exploded already, and they're just waiting until the end of the season. I'm not sure that the Chargers organization wants to throw that type of monkey wrench into Justin Herbert's early development. I think they want him to finish the season with Anthony Lynn. But when you look at how the Buffalo Bills game ended for the Los Angeles Chargers, it's unacceptable. Some of those losses, you know, you can say that teams made plays or the Chargers were right there, but there were so many points in that game where coaching failed to the Los Angeles Chargers. And, yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, unless you're the Sean Paytons, the Mike Tomlins, and most times the Pete Carrolls, and most times not even those guys, do you even get put in the category, Andy Reid, put in the category where you can coach along with Bill Belichick. And so I definitely think this is going to be a difficult game for the Chargers to win as a whole, but I believe that Justin Herbert can play well. You know, we've seen other quarterbacks have good days and good outings against this New England Patriot defense this year. I mean, we even saw Joe Flacco look like he could be a starting quarterback again in this league. And so I think that Justin could play well. I think that the Chargers can be in this game. And depending on how the Patriots play offensively, have a chance to win it late. But as far as a coaching battle goes, it's sad for me to say, you know, because I never want to call for any coach's job, much less one of the very few African-American coaches we have in this league. But this year, Anthony Lynn has been below the line.
Yeah, he really has been. You know, it's funny because the Chargers fans remember Marty Schottenheimer, and he had a terrible record in the playoffs, but I always thought actually Schottenheimer was a great coach, and he got a little unlucky. He had a couple bad calls in the playoffs, but a little unlucky in the playoffs, and you always have to be careful, like Caldwell in Detroit. Like, careful what you wish for. When good's not good enough, the next guy might not be good. Anyway, want to move on to because we already addressed Saints or Seahawks in the NFC, kind of tangentially, because we talked about how we both believe it's the Saints. Who is your favorite young quarterback in the NFL right now, not named Patrick Mahomes?
It would be if Patrick Mahomes gets to be young, it's Deshaun Watson. I think we are starting to see him ascend into where the Aaron Rodgers are, where the Drew Breeses have been. You know, I think right now we're watching Deshaun Watson get to a level of play that we've never seen Ben Roethlisberger, or we've never seen Eli Manning, you know, maybe other than his playoff runs. And I think that's exceptional when you look at how the world could actually be falling apart around him. You give away his best weapons. You don't necessarily have a running game. You have a defense that's just flat out awful, but every week he competes. Every week he continues to grow, and he's gotten to a point now where you can count on him, at least his individual play, the same way you do a guy like Patrick Mahomes. And when, we had this conversation before the season, maybe, you, I, and Stephen A., and we had the conversation of who's his biggest rival, who's Patrick Mahomes' biggest rival going forward. And I remember one of you guys saying it was Lamar Jackson because of what was around him, the organization he was playing for. And I just told y'all, I don't care about the organization. When I look at a dude and say, hey, man, he got it, Deshaun Watson has it. And, he's showing that more and more.
It's a great point because very few quarterbacks can transcend a bad organization, are so great that they'd be great no matter where they were. And Deshaun Watson, every year it's the same thing. Early on you go, is he a little more hype than reality? His numbers don't exactly match up with how we feel about him. Is it because he won a national title? Is it because we want him to be great because he was compared to Michael Jordan? And then by the middle end of the year, you're like, nope, he's really great. He's doing it again. Real quick, I totally agree about Deshaun Watson. Real quick, though, Ryan Clark, before I let you go, you have to choose one to have their future. Is it Deshaun Watson or is it Justin Herbert?
Ooh, that's tough. Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson, because of the way he's made, because of him already having the opportunity to get into that second contract, get that money, and now showing us what that next level of play is for him, I would take Deshaun. And maybe it's because I've seen more and I have that bias. I love Justin Herbert. There's still a little more I need to see from him from consistency.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're right. If you want to be a smart bettor, you bet Deshaun Watson because he's closer to it now. But I think I might take Herbert. I think Herbert has more talent. But Deshaun Watson this year, he's the second best quarterback in the AFC. After Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. And everyone just heard Ryan Clark. Thank you, Ryan. Everyone just heard Ryan Clark say, Deshaun Watson is where Aaron Rodgers is. Lakers were in the zone this week. They kept their dynamic duo together for years to come. Get in the Zone is brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the Zone, AutoZone. Speaking of AD, hear what he expects to do after re-signing with the greatest franchise in the history of basketball in the known universe. XM Channel 80 and on your smart speaker. No doubt coming up in a few minutes. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. And you know what? I'll ask you what I just asked Ryan Clark. If you could have the rest of this guy's career as the quarterback of your team, would you take Deshaun Watson or Justin Herbert? Because I believe that is going to be what it comes down to in the AFC after Mahomes. Mahomes is in his own category. Herbert, I believe, and Deshaun Watson are the two who look to me like the best. But who would you rather have? Deshaun Watson, more established, has accomplished more, and therefore more consistent over his career so far because he has a larger body of work where you can see he can hit a high level. Justin Herbert may be more talented.
That's tough, man. That's a tough one. I'm a sucker for potential. So I like seeing a little bit of Herbert, and I'm like, ooh-wee. But, man, you already see what Deshaun can do. And now you strip some weapons from him, and look what he's doing this year still without Hopkins.
That's the thing, though. Deshaun's never really been on a good team. He makes the team good,
What you doing, man?
Mike, hold on. Deshaun makes his team good, but he's never been on a good team. And the one thing that's suspicious about Justin Herbert, his record. Now, you can't blame it all on the quarterback. Great quarterbacks, usually their teams have decent records. That's not Justin Herbert's, although I'm looking at Anthony Lynn. Coach. I don't think the coach is very good. Anyway, it's V Week, and during these challenging times, ESPN and the V Foundation's fight against cancer has not stopped. If, and only if you're able, I know times are tight, but if you're able, please support cancer research by visiting v.org/donate. 100% of what you give goes to cancer research. Anthony Davis on what he expects now that he signed that 5-year max extension with the Los Angeles.
I'm very motivated. I want to do it again. When we won the Western Conference Finals, Bron said, just wait till you win that championship and you hold that trophy. Your love for winning just grows. And ever since holding that trophy, I just want to do it again. You want to hold that trophy over and over and over, and you get addicted to winning. So I want that feeling again. I want to be able to hold that Larry O'Brien trophy again, and become a meme where I'm crying and people are using it for everything. So those are good memes. So I'm ready to get started again. I'm ready to get with this group of guys and get back to work to be able to hoist one of those trophies again.
When are we going to change the name of this trophy, the Larry O'Brien Trophy? So many guys to choose from. How about the Bill Russell Trophy? He won the most championships. Call it the Bill Russell Trophy. Anyway, point is, you know how many championships Anthony Davis won before he got LeBron freaking James? 0. How many times did he get close? 0. Was he on some good teams? In fact, I was arguing about this today on First Take as it relates to the Bucks and Giannis. Giannis needs to get out of there. Those Bucks owners played Milwaukee cheap, didn't keep Brogdon when they could have. And so now they have less to trade to bring in the players they want. Then they botched the Bogdanovich deal. So they have Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton as the main support for Giannis. You say, oh, that's pretty good. It is pretty good, but it's not enough. You know what, Anthony Davis, who's comparable to Giannis, at least in terms of size and value, if not exactly their games. Anthony Davis, who a lot of people are saying is second best player in the world right now to LeBron, had Drew Holiday on his team and Rondo and Mirotic. Mirotic was hurt a lot, but he was healthy in the playoffs. Played 35 minutes a game in the playoffs. They did zip. They didn't do a damn thing in the playoffs. So AD gets to the Lakers, and he pairs with the best player in the world, and you have 2 top 5 players, arguably number 1 and 2 on the same team. No kidding, they won the championship. In retrospect, I didn't know LeBron was still the best. It turns out he is. And now and I didn't know Pelinka would get the details right. It turns out he did. And now they've reloaded. They look better on paper, and the rest of the league really didn't get better. The Clippers really needed to bring in someone who could be like an organizing force for their offense, a guy like Rondo or Drew Holiday or Chris Paul. And they didn't. Serge Ibaka's an upgrade over Montrezl Harrell, but Montrezl Harrell's pretty good, and he's on the Lakers now. So the Clippers didn't get good enough. The Nuggets didn't improve unless Porter Jr. really takes a step forward. So who is there? Dallas, if Porzingis can stay healthy. Who else in the West? People are really talking about the Blazers. The Blazers are going to have to play. Show me you can play defense first. And then Phoenix. Phoenix took a huge step forward. Are they ready to challenge the Lakers? I don't think so. No, this is AD's looking good. AD's going to have at least 2 chips with the Lakers with LeBron because they already got 1. He's going to have at least 2. At least 2. He's going to enter the conversation for greatest power forward ever because, it's going to be him and Tim Duncan. And then, shout out Kevin Garnett, but it's going to be him and Tim Duncan. Meanwhile, teammate Jared Dudley said on video conference that he's, quote, expecting AD to go for MVP, expecting him to set the tone. We know LeBron James, after years playing in this league, the accolades he has, but AD doesn't have some of those accolades. He has the talent, he has the determination, he's the future, and he's the now. And in LeBron, AD and LeBron are an excellent pair because LeBron is the guy controlling the ball, and he's the older guy whose ego is not going to get in the way of AD's development and his kind of position in the hierarchy. Like, LeBron can't help it if he's so talented and he's such a basketball genius that he's still better than AD. Right? That's not his fault. Or I guess it is, but it's not because he's trying to hold AD back in any way. Magic and Kareem worked really well. Roger, you just ring the doorbell?
I did. For one, a friend of the show, and who's coming on next hour, Mychal Thompson, is listening already. Of course, father of the great Klay Thompson and former Laker champion and whatnot on the Lakers broadcast. He wants to correct you about some AD. I'll let him do that. However, he said, yo, how you going to leave out Lamar Jackson in your best of the AFC? He's been a Lamar Jackson apologist for years.
No. I didn't leave out Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson left out Lamar Jackson. I didn't leave out Lamar. Lamar left out Lamar. Listen to Joe in New York. Go ahead. Joe in New York. Go ahead.
How you doing?
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to the talk about the AFC quarterbacks, and you said Mahomes being in a class by himself, and I get that. But you said, well, who would you take, Herbert or Watson? Now I'm saying, what about last year's MVP?
No, okay. I'm not talking about what happened last year or who you take over the next 2 seasons. I'm talking about who you would take over the rest of their careers. I love Lamar. I would take Deshaun Watson over Lamar for the rest of their careers. I think I would also take Justin Herbert. I really do think. Look, sometimes you say, well, it's not fair. Justin Herbert's jumping the line kind of. I'm just going by the eyeball test. And I think everyone knows
kind
what
of
I'm talking
judgment
about.
Right now.
Like, what's that?
It is a little quick to make that kind of judgment on Herbert's first year. I get it. Well, Lamar Jackson was the MVP this year. He's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could be you're bringing him into the conversation. Mychal Thompson just brought him into the conversation. Joe from New York. I get it. But his play has kind of recently has taken him out of that conversation. I'm just being honest about what I see. I think Justin Herbert has different kind of talent than the other young quarterbacks I see. And Deshaun and Mahomes had different talent. Mahomes, after his first preseason game, I came on First Take and said, he has one of the most electric arms I've ever seen. I compared him to Brett Favre. And everyone said I was crazy. And I said, guys, I think when I'm going to tell my grandkids about Patrick Mahomes' arm. That's his first preseason game. And I was like, I know. I'm just telling you honestly what I see. Justin Herbert has got different kind of talent. Whether or not it pans out, I pointed out he's 2-8 as a starter. And maybe that's Anthony Lynn. Maybe he's not doing it. Whatever it is, Justin Herbert is differently talented. I don't think Deshaun Watson is differently talented like Mahomes or like Herbert. And I don't think Lamar Jackson is in terms of his throwing ability, like passing ability, like Mahomes or Herbert from what I've seen. But Deshaun Watson has something else. Deshaun can do everything. And he has a certain leadership quality about him that makes you want him on your team. There's some guys like that. Tom Brady was like that. Derek Jeter was like that, right? You could point to more talented players, but somehow that was the guy you want. Deshaun has that thing. On top of being a guy who can read defenses, throw accurately, and run. So Lamar Jackson's regressed a bit as a passer. Max Kellerman Show, presented by Progressive Insurance. Is it too late for Sam Darnold? And by the way, who would you rather have? 888-SAY-ESPN for the rest of their careers. Deshaun Watson or Justin Herbert? Time for some Straight Talk. Look, we all drop our phones. It happens. You fumble it, crack it, splash it. Well, Straight Talk Wireless now offers this new premium unlimited plan. That plus the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. We're going to get to the Rockets giving Harden, quote-unquote, space soon. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Pennzoil synthetic motor oils are made from natural gas. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE5W30. Going to get right down to it. We got you covered. Let me tell you what I think of me. No doubt.
Yo, Max, take a listen to Sam Darnold, former USC quarterback.
First of all, I take full responsibility for, the way I've played. I just haven't played well enough. And again, like I continue to say every single week, we have great people in this organization. And so with that being said, everyone's going to, take blame for certain parts of us not winning games. But again, for me personally, I got to play better and put the team in the right positions to be able to win games and, make it close at the end.
Hey, maybe to be with a new coaching staff, but Sam Darnold can still be a successful quarterback.
Oof. Nah. I think Darnold could have been a successful. Well, I can't say no doubt. All right, fine, no doubt. Look, he can. It's possible. So if you're saying is it possible, it's possible. He's got to get away from the Jets. A bad organization can ruin a guy. Darnold has had periods where he's been successful. He's the lowest QBR by far in the NFL out of all 32 starters right now. The worst.
All right.
But I've seen him in college and in the pros as a good quarterback. So he is not so good he can be great independent of his organization. If he has any success at all in his career, it's not going to be with the Jets. He's got to get out.
All right. Hey, check it out. Jay-Z turns 51 today. Jay is the most influential rapper in history.
No doubt. Jay-Z is the greatest rapper of all time. And the reason is not that I think that, like, at his peak, he was better in his era than some of the greatest ever in theirs, like Nas, Illmatic, Cool G Rap. Listen, there's a reason Jay-Z says hearing me rap is like hearing G Rap in his prime. Rakim at his best. My favorite is, and personal favorite's Ghost. But Jay is like Hank Aaron. He hits 48 home runs a year for like 20-something years, right? Like, he's the all-time leader, not because his peak was the very highest, although it's among the highest, but his peak is among the highest, and he's done it for decades now. So he's in a class by himself.
All right, hey, check it out. It's time to give Baker Mayfield the headband. That's right, the headband. Time to give him some respect if they beat the Titans this week.
Nah, son. Like, Baker's got the right amount of respect. People know what it is. He's fine. He's okay. He's not better than that. And how many good wins do they have this year? He beat the Colts. By the way, remember what Casey Joyner, the football scientist, told us, Raj? What kind of division are you in, right? If you're from a division like the Colts or the Titans, you ain't going to win the Super Bowl probably, right? And the quality wins that Baker has this year against the Colts, and if he beats the Titans, it'll beat the Titans. I don't think he will beat the Titans. Soft schedule for Cleveland this year. Got some thoughts on the Rockets giving Harden space. Plus, am I too high on Justin Herbert? Max Kellerman Show, back after this, ESPN Radio.
This is the Max Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. I have a big announcement to make in a second. Mychal Thompson about to stop by and tell us how many rings he expects from LeBron and AD together. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I asked you in the last hour who you'd rather have going forward, Deshaun Watson or Justin Herbert. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So here's the announcement. It's a major announcement. I was just talking to Raj during the break, and it turns out that I have the most all-time points in our DraftKings league. Where's the applause track, Raj?
It's here.
Where's the yay? I am the draft king. Raj is in a distant second.
It's not distant. That makes me the draft queen. I can be the second. That's fine. I'll be the prince.
You're the draft queen.
That or the prince. Either way, that's fine.
And then, no, queen. Right, the queen is good. And I'm the king. Now, how does the rest of our league shake out?
Third place would be Steve Mason. Remember a couple years he was on a good run, Steve Mason?
He was on a good run for a couple years. Mason's in third. That's interesting. Yeah.
And shockingly, even though Bill Wolf, Knicks, and the great Ben Lyons has been in the league all the way through,
Nick Tutz, Bill Wolf, Ben Lyons.
Marcellus Wiley is still in fourth place, even though he's retired for about 2 years, and he was horrible when he did play.
Oh my God, Nick and Bill and Ben ought to be ashamed of themselves. Marcellus is no good when he played. He's been out of the league for 2 years.
Awful.
Well, the headline is that people should take away is, I am the draft king. Yay for Max. Now, let me just say that I want you to listen to Stephen Silas, Rockets head coach, about James Harden and whether he's heard from Harden and where Harden stands with the Rockets. Listen to Coach Silas.
I haven't spoken to him since the trade. And to be honest with you, when stuff like this kind of happens, where there's a little indecision and stuff going on, I kind of take a step back and allow guys some space. So from my perspective, my communication has been, I'm giving you space. And that's kind of where it's been as far as my communication with him. You know, guys like that need that. They need to figure it out. They don't need someone banging on them all the time to kind of figure out where they're at. And as far as the organization, I'm not sure. I can only speak for myself, but you know, I'm looking forward to him coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the team looks like. I'm looking forward to the whole group being on the floor together.
Oh, Harden will have space away from Houston because there's a lot of space between Houston and Brooklyn, or Houston and Philadelphia, or Houston and wherever Harden's going, because Harden's out of there. Are you kidding? Listen, here's the thing. Just keep this in mind, everybody, thinking about the Rockets situation, okay? James Harden never had a team that should have competed with the Warriors. Never. Never. Not once the Warriors got KD. Who do you have, Chris Paul and Trevor Ariza and a couple guys? Get out of here. The Warriors had 73 wins, and then added Kevin Durant. And they were so overwhelming that LeBron used to look at them with Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving and be like, there's nothing I could do with these dudes. Too many of them. They're too good. And he was right. Not a knock against LeBron. It's a credit to LeBron that the Warriors and KD looked at each other and said, let's link up because otherwise we can't get by the king, right? But once they did, you just stacked it. Like even Michael Jordan, like if the Monstars really got together, right? They could have beat, like if it was Olajuwon and everyone else, and Ewing and Robinson, and Barkley and Malone and Stockton, and I like eventually you're like, okay, they just got too many guys. That's what it was like with the Warriors. How was it that the Rockets were able to take them to a Game 7 at Houston? A fully loaded Warriors team. They had everybody. How'd they do that? No Chris Paul in Game 7. They went 0 for 27 at one point from 3, the Rockets did, without Chris Paul. And yet they only lost by single digits to the KD, Steph, Clay, and Dre Warriors? Is that because Harden was so great? Actually, no, he didn't play well that game. No, what it was Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni had the guts to say we're going to play the most efficient brand of basketball ever. We're only taking the most efficient shots. It's not going to be pretty. People are going to criticize us. We don't care. We're going to do it this way. So they got close. They got much closer. The Rockets were not the second most talented team even. But they almost beat the Warriors. They probably should have. With Chris Paul, I think they would have beaten the Warriors, even without Chris Paul. If they just, instead of going 0 for 27 during that stretch, go 4 for 27. You win the game. They only lost by 9. Daryl Morey's gone. Mike D'Antoni's gone. And now Westbrook has been traded for John Wall. Now, you got a first-round pick in the deal, but it's lottery protected, and the pick isn't going to be picked until, 2023? The Rockets are not going to be a factor. Harden's got to get out of there. He's 32 years old. He's in his prime. He's an all-time great. He has choked consistently in the big moments, but less and less over time. My impression from James Harden this past postseason is he could have been better, but he could have been a lot worse. Every postseason, I feel like he's taking steps closer and closer. And his prime is fleeting. I mean, LeBron James is the most severe outlier of all time that way. How many more years does James Harden have as a truly great superstar? Don't waste them in Houston on a team. Don't tell me, well, John Wall, you could be competitive. Do you know how gangster it is to win a championship? Steph and Clay and Dre and Iguodala couldn't do it. They needed to add Kevin Durant. Now, they did win a championship. Yeah, because LeBron played without Kyrie or Kevin Love. But even think about that. Kevin Love was going for like 25, 12, and whatever it was in Minnesota as the best player on a 500 team in a very tough Western Conference. He had to join with Kyrie and LeBron to get a championship. By the skin of their teeth, by the way. It is ridiculously hard in the NBA to win a championship. And James Harden and John Wall, especially absent a philosophy like the one Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni brought to that team, are not going to come close to sniffing one. Harden's got to get out. Connor in Kansas, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, Max, I think we need to pump the brakes on Deshaun Watson and Justin Herbert. You got to think about this. Watson's playing for probably in front of the worst offensive line in football, and their defense is very meh in a terrible front office. And for Herbert...
So how is... Right, so that's to his credit, Connor, that he's doing this.
Yeah, and they're going to go third in their division and not make the playoffs.
But let's just talk. Let's isolate quarterback play as much as we can. You're giving Watson extra credit. And in terms of pumping the brakes on Herbert, I will do no such thing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit the gas on Herbert. And if one day I change my mind, just like this, I'm going to say, whoops, I was wrong about Herbert. That's all. And on to the next guy. But right now, this is how I'm feeling about Herbert. I look at him and I think, damn, that dude is differently talented. I think that Mahomes is he and Rodgers, talent-wise, are in a class by themselves. And then Deshaun Watson is the next, well, Russell Wilson is after those two. And then Deshaun Watson, at least in the AFC, is the next best quarterback in the AFC to Patrick Mahomes. And I think has the second brightest future. But Deshaun Watson's more of a finished product. than Justin Herbert. He's been in the league much longer. When I look at Justin Herbert, I go, damn, this kid is already that good. And he has a bad head coach. Ugh, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm taking Herbert, damn it, for sure. I'm saying that's the question for me. Deshaun Watson versus Justin Herbert. And if I'm wrong about Herbert and it looks like, oh, I overrated him, big deal. I don't care. That's what I think right now. I thought the same thing about Mahomes early. I was right about him. And a lot of people were saying the same thing about various players, including like Lamar Jackson. And either you're right or you're wrong about it. But, the evidence will tell you. But this is the way I'm feeling when I eyeball these guys right now. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Connor just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper calling line telling me to pump the brakes on Deshaun Watson because his team isn't good. Nevertheless, Deshaun Watson succeeds. And Justin Herbert, because he hasn't done it yet. Nevertheless, I see what I see. Now, Mychal Thompson joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Mychal, are you there?
How in the home of where the devil lives, you can just forget about Lamar Jackson?
Who?
That's right. Lamar Jackson isn't having a bad year. The people having a bad year are his play callers. Basically, Max, he's not running like he was last year. It would be like telling Steph Curry or Clay to stop shooting so much. They've taken away like half of his game, which are his legs. His rushing attempts.
No, you know what though, Mychal? Mychal, in the playoffs, the other team takes away his game, and against the Chiefs, the other team. He has failed in his biggest moments. Let me tell you, I'm not just talking about losing to good teams. I'm not talking about Bill Belichick scheming in a way to beat you or, having COVID. Who knows when he got it, right? And maybe it was, just like with Cam, maybe it was affecting him before we realized. And never mind all that. You have got to beat the Steelers, which he hasn't done when the Steelers had Roethlisberger. You have got to beat the Chiefs if you're in the AFC. He's lost all 3 games he's played against the Chiefs. And you have got to win in the playoffs. And not only did he not win in the playoffs, he looked awful in his first game, and then he lost to the Titans in his next game in the playoffs. So Lamar's got to show me, and I'm not saying he can't. I'm saying he hasn't shown me yet that he can be the best version of himself in the must-win kind of games. Deshaun Watson, on the other hand, Mychal, Deshaun Watson's got it. Deshaun Watson's one of those dudes who's going to elevate a team beyond what they should be. Do you disagree?
No, I like Deshaun Watson. He's a stud, no question about it. But Lamar's taken his team to the playoffs twice. Yeah, you're right. He's got to beat the key teams like Kansas City and Pittsburgh and Tennessee when the chips are there to be pulled to the center of the table. No question about that. He has yet to do that. But my goodness, the man made history last year. He's having a down year this year. He's 23 freaking years old, Max. He's acting like he's 33.
Well, look, I understand you understand about championships. You were the first overall draft pick in the NBA. You averaged 20 and 12. Then you got traded to the Lakers. You won 2 championships. You're a team player. All 3 of your sons achieved in sports on the highest professional levels, including Klay Thompson, who looks like he's in the middle of a Hall of Fame career. So I'm not saying you don't understand about championships and what it takes. However, I will remind you, I used to put MLB 2005 MVP in franchise mode, and I would simulate it against the computer, and I won back-to-back World Series back in 2005. That's all I'm going to tell you. So I think we both have experience with championships.
Yes, right. And speaking of championships, will you quit calling AD a one-time champion? AD's won 3 championships. Will you quit? Remember that. He's won in college, he's won at the World Cup level, and he's won the Olympic championship. Back, he's a 4-time champion now.
NBA, Mychal, we're talking about NBA.
So what?
Come on, stop it.
But he's still a champion.
NBA.
He's still a champion. But then say that he won his first NBA championship. Don't say he won his first championship.
What do you expect? Hey, before we get on, because you're a boxing fan, what are you expecting from Spence and Garcia on Saturday night?
Max, boy, I can't wait. I'm so nervous about this fight because I like both fighters, but I'm a huge Errol Spence fan. You know me. I've been telling you for the longest he's the best welterweight, not Terrence Crawford, before the car accident. But now, unlike you and everybody else, we want to see how if this car accident affected him and how he's going to respond when he catches one of Danny Garcia's powerful left hooks. Will he be able to shake it off, or will the effects of that accident take over? Because we saw the last fight he was in was a war against Sean Porter. Will he be able to beat that Errol Spence again? So that's what everybody's waiting to see. And if he is that Errol Spence,
yeah, because let me tell you something, Mychal. I don't think Spence beats Garcia if he's not back to himself. Like Danny Garcia gave Keith Thurman all he could handle. That fight was very close, split decision. And Sean Porter beat Danny Garcia, I thought, clean. But Sean Porter almost beat Errol Spence. Like at this level, at the top levels of a very deep and excellent division, Errol Spence can't afford to go in as 80% of himself, I don't think. I mean, Mikey Garcia was different. He's a much smaller guy moving up. Danny Garcia's been at welterweight for a hot minute. This is an excellent matchup, and we will find out about Errol Spence for sure. Did you have any doubt ever that AD would re-sign with the Lakers?
No, none whatsoever. He and LeBron have a good rapport, great camaraderie. He loves being in LA, so that was a no-brainer. He was just waiting out the time, but was never in doubt that he was going to finish out his career as a Laker, and he will finish here as a Laker when he's in his late 30s.
How many rings do you expect him to get with the Lakers, Mychal?
Well, he's got his first. I expect him, like you said, they're going to win it again this year. God forbid anybody gets hurt. That's around the league, but they're the best team on paper right now, and hands down, I think they're the best. So he'll win a second this year. I think they can three-peat, like you said the other day on First Take. So that would be 3. When LeBron retires, he's going to be such a major attraction for other stars to come play with. I could see AD ended up with 5 by the time he retires.
Well, if he wins 5, he'll be in the conversation with Tim Duncan for greatest power forward of all time.
He's the most talented power forward ever. He's kind of a combination between Tim Duncan and Rasheed Wallace, and nobody else has had that kind of combination. AD has no weakness in his game, none.
Yeah. Well, and defensively, like Kevin Garnett, in the sense that he can be extremely disruptive in the pick and roll, too.
Oh, yeah, he can do it. He moves his feet. I mean, he used to be a point guard when he was a kid in high school growing up, so he's always been blessed. He brought those quick feet with him as he started to grow.
Now, if he gets to 5 and he's maybe considered the greatest power forward ever, I look at the Lakers 1 through 5, Mychal. The greatest point guard of all time is who?
Magic.
Laker.
Magic.
One of the 2 greatest shooting guards of all time is who? There's Michael Jordan and
Kobe.
That's 2 for 2, right? We have like either the greatest or arguably the greatest ever at a position.
Right.
At the 3, who's the greatest small forward who ever lived?
Come on, that's easy. LeBron.
That's 3 for 3. At the 5, well, look, it's close, but I would argue, like, because Bill Russell was great and Hakeem was great, but who's the greatest center who ever lived?
Kareem, hands down.
All Lakers. How about in the modern era? Who is the most unstoppable center?
Well,
recently,
I mean, obviously Shaq. When Shaq was motivated, there's nothing you can do about him. Yeah, Shaq.
Nothing you can do about it. And he was the new generation's Wilt, who was also on the Lakers. Do you understand? If Anthony Davis winds up with multiple rings and is in the conversation for greatest power forward, the Lakers have that 1 through 5. Either they got it or very close to it. It is unbelievable what's going on with the Lakers right now.
Yeah, it's an historic franchise. Had the greatest owner ever in the history of sports, I believe, in Dr. Buss. No other owner compares to him. So it's playing in obviously arguably the greatest sports city in the world. I mean, the Lakers have it all.
What if LeBron James wins a championship this year? And then 2 years from now, at an obscenely advanced age. I mean, Kareem was in college 4 years, couldn't play as a freshman back then. Those were the rules. So he won 3 championships, lost 2 games the entire time. Greatest college player ever, by far. And then he wins 6 titles as a pro. But maybe partly because of the mileage and because of nutrition, whatever, back then, Kareem, by the time he was LeBron's age, or by the time he had played as many years in the NBA as LeBron had, was no longer an MVP caliber player. What if LeBron goes back-to-back, and now we're looking at a 3-peat 2 years from now? That would be 6 rings. He'd have the greatest career value. Would he eclipse Michael Jordan or whoever you have, because you're one of these cranky old-timers who doesn't want to just admit that Jordan's the greatest? Would LeBron be considered the GOAT to you if he 3-peats and gets 6 rings?
Well, Max, obviously he'll be very tapping Jordan on the shoulder to shoulder with Jordan, talking about the greatest. He would deserve to be in that conversation. If he ends up with 6 championships, you got to say he's seriously in that conversation. But when Michael won his 6, he was 6-0. He probably could have won 8 if he hadn't retired.
Yeah.
But, if you want to put LeBron there after he gets to his 6th ring, I mean, you're not crazy. I wouldn't think you're crazy for saying that. So I couldn't call you say you were nuts. He deserves to be mentioned.
Yep, he deserves to be mentioned, but Jordan will still be the GOAT. Well, I mean, look, career-wise, it's Kareem. And LeBron will have passed Kareem at that point. And peak, it's Jordan. But you could argue LeBron only because, LeBron's peak was close enough, and he did it for 20 years. The great Mychal Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. Father Knows Best is what we call that segment. Thank you, Mychal. I also have Mychal on as a guest on Max on Boxing. He's an excellent boxing talker. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. Some big games coming up Sunday. NFL Whip Around is next. You know, it's not healthy stressing about work, or maybe you're out of work. Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Get to Last Take in a few minutes. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance.
And now, another segment Max and Raj created that everyone's stealing, the NFL Whip Around.
We didn't have the image already. We didn't have the image.
They did.
All right, let's get to the real guy.
Browns at Titans.
Good job, Spencer.
Okay, Browns at Titans. I like Tennessee in this game. You know, a lot of people are talking about and there's an article, I'm trying to remember who had it up on ESPN.com. I suggest you check it out. And they're talking about how, look, Chubb and Kareem Hunt was the NFL rushing leader in 2017, and Chubb had the lead into the last game of the season last year when Derrick Henry overtook him with a 200-plus yard performance. But so how is Tennessee's defense going to stop the Cleveland run game, right? I don't see it that way. I think this game comes down to how the Cleveland's pass defense, right, stacks up. And can Ryan Tannehill get it done? Because they have a pretty good run defense. And you know Titans are built that way. I think, can Ryan Tannehill beat the Browns? And I think the Browns' defense, their secondary, can be exploited. And I think the Tannehill does it and wins the game. I like the Titans.
Rams at Cardinals.
This is a very tough one. Rams are favored on the road. I like Arizona, and I think it comes down to what I've been talking about. Like, who do you trust more? We talked about it on First Take. We debated it on First Take. I won as always, and now we're talking about it on this show. And I'm winning even though it's not a debate. So much winning, Raj. I think that when it comes down to it, the Rams have much higher end defense, like capable of like the Bears. Like, ooh, if that Rams defense gets going, it's too much. Arizona's solid, but the Rams they're capable of being special there. What it comes down to is if it's a close game, if it's a one-possession game, I like Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins better. And I think that's going to get it done. I think at home, Kyler Murray wins the game. So I like Arizona in a tough one.
Saints at Falcons.
Are you serious with this? The Saints are going to kill the Falcons. Next.
Saints at Falcons.
You really want me to talk about it? The Saints, the last, 3 or 4 weeks, have had the best defense in the NFL. The Quan Alexander trade, it's not like he's not a flashy guy.
Yeah.
You know, but he's a linebacker that's capable of doing a lot of stuff. And it really solidified their defense, which was already pretty good. And the Saints have been playing lights out defense. They're giving up single digits to teams, even teams with good offenses.
Are you worried at all that teams are figuring out Taysom Hill, though? I mean, the more you see of this guy, the more you kind of figure it out a little bit. You worried?
Yeah, but I just said it's the defense. Like, Taysom Hill has Mychal Thompson and Emmanuel Sanders and Alvin Kamara, and it's about the defense with this team right now. Saints are going to kill the Falcons. Next.
Giants at Seahawks.
Giants defense has been playing better and better as the season goes on. I think Joe Judge is showing promise as a rookie head coach. They don't have their quarterback, and Daniel Jones is a low average starter at this point, which is pretty good for a second-year player, but they don't have that guy. And the Seahawks are finding themselves again. Seattle also made a deadline pickup on defense that's worked out, and Dunlap also has Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner, who are high-end producers on the defensive end. And, of course, Russell Wilson's a top 3 quarterback in the league. Seattle's going to beat the Giants handily. Also a home game.
Patriots at Chargers.
Warren Sharp of Sharp Analytics, Raj. You know I shout him out on the air on First Take on the Max Kellerman Show. I'd shout him out on Max on Boxing if we talked football ever for
friend of the show.
Friend of the show, that's right. Friend of my various shows. It's a mismatch. It's a coaching mismatch. It's how Warren Sharp put it. It's a coaching mismatch. Anthony Lynn, one of the few African-American coaches in the league, his seat is burning hot because he's been a bad coach. How else can I put it? By the way, just because an African-American coach might lose his job, why shouldn't it be that also he can be replaced by an African-American coaching candidate, right? So because there is a racial issue in the NFL here. 32 jobs and very few African-American head coaches, even though the league is predominantly black, right? But nevertheless, that can't stop you from being politically correct or sensitive to that issue, from telling the truth. Anthony Lynn's a bad coach.